I think let's fast forward and come and speak about directly how is this now colonialist mindset affecting the world today, but specifically because we're talking about the battle of narratives in the context of the war we're going through right now. How is that affecting what we're going through today?
So I think, again, you'll have to see the same areas that we discussed. So for example, things starting from political domination, economic domination. So right now, regime change. What is regime change, which was the announced goal of this war, is political domination. If there is a ruler that doesn't go along with your way of doing things, they will just remove it. Or the bigger factor is control over oil. Although I think this has been said by many analysts that actually what the United States is doing, trying to control oil, is actually a sign of their desperation. There was a time when they didn't need to do it. Right now, because the world order is changing and we're moving to a multipolar world, they're becoming desperate. And that's how hegemons are. When they lose their hegemony, they go crazy, basically. And we have an example of that person leading who's actually behaving very erratically. So the economic domination is there, so control over Iranian oil or oil markets or the petrodollar system that shouldn't be touched. So it's exactly the same colonial thing, but as it has changed form, it's become sophisticated. And of the new colonialism, the difference was that they tried to hide it. They tried to cover it up, either so it's not seen, or it's colored nicely, so people think it's something nice.
Polished.
It's polished in that way. So these are two things that you can see. But deeper down, I think it's a battle of, as you said, a different way of life. There is a country by the name of Iran who had a revolution against the Western hegemony. And they said that, look, we have our own values, we have our own worldview, we have our own God, we have our own civilization, we have our own knowledge, we have our own poetry, we have our own architecture, we have our own political system, we have our own economic system, we have our own life. And we will make sure that we will live by these principles, whatever sacrifice it may take. So I think it makes sense in this larger context. Again, I don't want to use these words because these have been used by wrong people. So it's kind of a civilizational battle or a problem, although this term has been spoiled because of that Huntington's book, Clash of Civilizations. So they even spoke about Clash of Civilization in a different way. So now it becomes hard to use this word because people think you're speaking about that. But in a way, that's how it is. You have an Islamic Muslim civilization based on teachings of Ahlul Bayt and Quran that this society is trying to establish and practice with the aim of getting closer to God. That's Imam Khomeini wanted this. He wanted to take the society closer to God because he thought it's not enough that only few people like Ayatollah Bahjat and likes of him, they reach Kamal and perfection, and everyone else is grinded in this colonial system. They're so oppressed, they can't even think of getting closer to God. He said, no, we have to change this. So it's this grand idea of establishing Allah's rule on earth, making sure that Allah is obeyed on land, but at a social scale. So that's the main thing.
And on that side, you have a mindset that says, no, we don't agree with your human rights, we don't agree with your political system, we don't want you to be independent economically, we don't want you to progress scientifically, therefore we're going to come and destroy you.
Yeah. And previously, when Sheikh covered most of it, there isn't much left to say, but just to cite an example, a few days ago, Donald Trump tweeted, and he said that Iran has been doing all this for 47 years. No one else had the courage to take them on for 47 years, but I'm the first one who's doing it. So it made it clearly evident that this was not about uranium, this was not about missiles only. It's about the courage to break free. It's about the courage to break that hegemony and say that no, we want a different way of life. Yes, there are other geopolitical concerns as well, the rise of China and everything. They're all there in the picture as well. We're not trying to just oversimplify it and just take one variable. There are other variables as well. But the problem with Iran is that Iran is not ready to compromise on its own independence, saying that no, I do not believe in that totalitarian way of life, in that totalitarian version of modernity in which everyone has to fall in place. Though it has to be one political system, one set of human rights, one economic system, one same 2030 Millennium Goals, same schooling same universities. I mean, just take the term university, for example. Universities used to be monastic schools. They were cathedral schools.
Yeah, Christian.
Look at the gumption. They call it university. I mean, it covers everyone. You can't be out of it. Yeah, they were Christian monastic schools who were upgraded, secularized, and desacralized to only include a few subjects and profane in a very profane manner. And through colonialism, these school systems, they were implanted in other states, and the schools and universities today, I mean, this whole idea is secular in its very essence. And if you try to have your own system of education, you fall out of that system. The same goes with this bureaucratic modern state. We all know that these boundaries are arbitrary, but you have to abide by them. Economic system, we know it's oppressive, but you can't envision a different economic system. They don't allow you to do it. And Iran had the courage to put a question mark in front of that. Yeah. It has not completely broken free from it.
Yeah,
it has tried. Politically it did. But it just dared to put a question mark, and Trump is forced to say that for 47, I'll do what wasn't done for 47 years. So it was not about uranium. It was about the courage of giving people hope that a different world is possible, a different type of life is possible.
So basically, when sometimes you hear in the news the narrative that Iran has an expansionist project and it wants to go and dominate others, in reality, it's basically twisting the truth. It's saying that in reality, Iran is trying to be independent. True. And it's giving the courage to other nations to be independent. Other nations are now daring to say no to the West. And that's basically a threat to the current system.
And that's the battle of narratives at times, right? Like from their perspective, this is their narrative, that Iran is expansionist. While in reality, there's been no civilization more expansionist, more brutal, more invasive than the Western civilization. They've like forced everything on everyone. But that's the difference. And that's why, like, I think there's one strategy that works against that, and that's what Iran has been doing, and that's resistance. That's why this keyword is so important, that you resist the Western hegemony in all these different forms. And if you do it well, they're not as strong as they seem. So that's the key, that they project themselves, because the projection of power is also very important. They project themselves to be invincible, cannot be touched. Either you accept it or you're forced to accept their way of doing things. It's not like that. It's more than what people. So there's one very interesting thing, Shaykh Imam Khamenei, he also said that more worrying than their military power, for example, is the fear of their military power. So that fear factor that we won't be able to defeat. I think this war I think probably right now we're failing to realize how significant what has just happened is. And that is that Iran having like 100th of the military budget of United States, $10 billion versus $1 trillion, managed to take on a superpower which was never defeated in battlefield and had strategic gains and wins. Again, no one should say that they've destroyed them completely, but it's like a defeat for them where they have no way out. So this is historical in some ways. And the key idea behind that has been resistance, that you be patient, you be wise, you resist, you build your capabilities. And of course, we also believe there's divine help and other factors. If you do it the right way, then these systems can be defeated.
The Javid Shah Pahlavi supporter has this perspective, and again, you see this on social media a lot, that what's wrong with exchanging our freedom for economic prosperity, like other countries have chosen to do, and we can see that they are flourishing. What would be wrong with that?
This is, again, what is freedom? And this is why I say that even language is colonized, because the minds are colonized.
Definitions and ideas are colonized.
What is
it's hard to explain. It's not like we expect that everyone, you just say it once, they'll understand. Sometimes we'll have to live with these things and re-question that who defines what freedom is.
Freedom is the condition, the ability to be able to actualize your full human potential. That's what freedom is. Freedom doesn't necessarily have to do with your choice of clothes or the choice of words that you necessarily use.
Yeah. Or the goods you can buy, and are your ships coming and going.
Which usually you're forced to buy. The choice of clothing is forced, but it's implicit. This is what cultural hegemony means. your choice of food or what you buy, it is
So basically
forced.
the freedom that these Javed Shah people came is, if you really open, it's not freedom. It's packaged at freedom, but it's coming with a lot of things where implicitly your choices have been compromised. You've been sold things in the name of freedom. But again, it's so implicit, it's sometimes hard to even explain. And people sometimes think that, we are exaggerating this. But yeah, it's fine. Like, we allow
Perhaps
you
if
to
we
think
look at
about
it from a
Look at
purely
a choice of
materialistic
buying
perspective.
things. Most of the people, the things they buy, they don't really want to buy them. It's the perception that's important, the peer pressure.
So the peer pressure, the influence from
the
media,
sociological,
yeah.
and all of that is a part of this modern world. So it's not really freedom. Which freedom are we talking about?
And,
So
and
but
the
if you look
other
at it
thing
from
is that the problem is that, let's say you want this fake freedom. Someone says that, no, I want this same fake freedom where it's about my pleasure, I get to buy the goods that I want. The problem is that when you compromise, even that's not guaranteed.
Look at
Not the
Venezuela.
case
Look at
because-
Venezuela.
Yeah.
Did they get their freedom?
So we saw that, right? Like in this, around 2 months since Maduro was abducted, their currency has dropped more by 50%. So there's more inflation, more people going into extreme poverty. Not only that you say, okay, let's take risk 50-50, let's sell our freedom, whatever that means, and get this economic benefit. And there's a chance of 50-50. If you be very realistic, it's like 90-10. So basically, you're risking, if you want to say, it's khasira dunya wal akhirah. So you lose your freedom and that humanity, that's your akhirah, if you say it from Islamic perspective. If someone would guarantee that you'll get dunya, you'll still say that, okay, I lost my akhirah, at least I confirmed dunya. It's not there. And there's so many examples that they'll wreck the same country that just did a deal with them. They'll make sure that they'll just destroy it fully.
Syria, for example, the first thing after the new government came, they carpet bombed their military infrastructure, even today.
So basically it's like this. If you get lucky, you might get some remnants of their thing.
You will get that economic prosperity as long as you're not bothering them and as long as they're fine with that. As soon as they need your money as well, they'll come and take it, and you don't have any power to counter that.
Look at the GCCs. States.
Right now
they traded their freedom, and for a period of time, they did receive a section of their own wealth, which mostly is in U.S. Treasury and U.S. bonds. Yeah. What they traded for their own wealth was their freedom, their security,
everything.
And then didn't even get that security.
So it's like basically, and I think it's a perspective that kind of Quran tries to give us, where it says that قَاتِلُوا أَئِمَّةَ الْكُفْرِ, resist, fight these leaders of kufr, إِنَّهُمْ لَا أَيْمَانَ لَهُمْ, there is no promise that they will live up to. And from a hegemon's mind, if you think, why should you abide by promises? You have the upper hand, you make the promises to make people surrender, and then when the time is ripe, you crush them. If you see from their hegemonic and mindset based on kufr, it makes perfect sense. Like, what are promises? What are moral values? You can commit a genocide, you can kill people. Like,
So
lying is the easiest, like breaking a promise is the easiest of things.
It's the least of the evils.
It's the least of the things to break.
So by giving away your freedom, you're not only putting your dunya at risk, but you're also giving up your human values, your religious values. You're compromising a lot of things.
For
And we saw
Muslims,
that
it
with-
becomes
we saw
very
that with
because you brought up
Japan.
Javed Shah people a lot, and because they don't really mean it, but they bring up the Iranian past and tradition and history a lot. What's the guarantee that they will even get that?
Yeah,
Of course.
the US has been bombing Iranian heritage sites.
Of course.
Yeah, so we also saw the humiliation that Japan went through recently, right? Again, they submitted they submitted their power to the West, and they had to go through humiliation. But I think this makes sense for somebody who looks at all of this purely through a materialistic lens. They look, for my pure pleasure, if I just shut up and submit to this power, then I'll be able to live and have my pleasures. I just keep quiet.
But even that's
then you'll have to be in the elite for that.
So there's
you'll have to make sure that you jump a few classes and make sure that you're among the elite who are going to benefit.
So
not everyone's going to benefit.
That's even a miscalculation. So there's, again, I'm referring back because I think he should be, although he's become Shaheed, he should be a point of reference. So Imam Khamenei, he had said that, yes, when you resist, you have to pay a price. But he said that price you pay when you surrender is always higher than price you pay when you resist. And it's very clear. For example, Iraq, when Americans invaded, for whatever social, political reason, they surrendered. They didn't do anything, right? How many people were killed? 1 million people. What did Iraq get? Nothing. They're thrown back 50 years back. The infrastructure was destroyed. The whole country was destroyed. We have a widow crisis, right? There's like 700,000 widowed families. The whole society is wrecked. And the airspace is open to Americans and Israelis, no air defenses. And worse, Iraq's oil is controlled by Americans. Basically, any Iraqi oil bought today, the payment is made to US Treasury first, and every month US Treasury releases the money in dollars to the to Iraqi central bank, and that's how they get money. And I think just a few days ago, I think Trump paused payment of Iraq's own money to Iraq. So this is the thing that you lose if you surrender. Yes, when you resist, there's a price to be paid. Iran is paying the price, right? Like the damages estimated in this war are in billions of dollars. They're saying 15,000 points were hit. Okay, more than 3,000 people have been killed, and each one is very valuable. It's a human being. Children have been killed. So yes, there is a price to be paid, but the price, basically, it's like this: that if you are weak in today's system, you will be dealt with any way they like. They'll throw you around. The only way to get your rights is you rise up in the ladder and you get that much leverage of how much closer you are to the peak. So even the European countries are finding this out. Canadian Prime Minister is saying that, we're realizing that we are so dependent now because we are not so high up in the ladder because it's the American elite who are controlling and calling the shots. So even they're ready to dispose of something like...
Even Europe is realizing that they are protected by they call it the nuclear umbrella of the US, and they can't step out of line, otherwise they lose that protection, that their dependence on the US basically.
So I think even from a purely materialistic perspective, the wisest strategy is to strengthen yourself. Yes, at times countries might have to make compromises because they are scared, like they can be destroyed and wrecked, they can cause civil war. But the general idea should be resist, strengthen yourself, and make sure you're strong enough to get what you want.
Resistance doesn't necessarily mean fighting all the time.
Yeah, it's like
I think that was a very powerful message for the whole of humanity, which is an Islamic message that Ayatollah Sayyid Khamenei I felt expressed really well, is that that message of independence, that every nation has to have their own independence, their economically, politically, they should make a decision for their own selves, right? They shouldn't allow other people. And that's not something, that's a message that talks to all human beings, not just Muslims, right? Every single nation should be able to make decisions for itself.
Yeah. And this is something that everyone aspires to. The Canadian Prime Minister, for example, or those in Europe, and everyone.
They
just don't have the courage. They're so enmeshed and embedded in this system that they can't get out of it.
Basically,
and the problem is, even for example, when we had alternative systems, for example, Soviet Union, for example, it's gone, or China, we have to be cognizant of the fact that on a greater scheme of things, somehow all of this also falls within that same materialistic paradigm.
So as a civilization, we don't see them differently.
Yeah.
Yes,
so it's not necessarily a clash of civilizations, because we might refer to China as a civilization, but their fight, a potential confrontation with the US, would not necessarily be civilizational. It's just a misnomer. The problem is due to state politics. One state hegemon, when it's trying to take over other hegemon, usually they fight.
So it's from a unipolar materialistic world to a multipolar materialistic world.
It's pure, yeah.
But
it's
is
pure
it
real
hegemony
politics.
from China as well? Would you give it the same name?
Potentially, it's very implicit. It tries to keep a very low profile, but it's potential.
But China and, for example, Russia, unlike the West, do not have a colonialist past nor a colonialist mindset, right?
It was slightly different with the Soviet Union. But of course, that's a past chapter. But with China, China's focused more on economic hegemony rather than cultural hegemony for now. It's not really even interested in that. So it could be more extractive in the long term. It won't necessarily have that benign face, even trying to educate people and telling them that even if you're worse off, you still feel that you're well off. But China will be like more like straightforward in this, that it's a transactional relationship. So I'll benefit more, but you'll also benefit a bit, but it's going to be a upsided relationship.
Okay,
so lopsided.
If you understand, this is how the world order is right now. This is how the world is functioning. You have this colonialist mindset on one side. You have Iran that's standing against this strong wave. does this question even have a meaning? What's our responsibility? We're like small individuals, very small players in massive systems fighting each other. Like, is there a role that we as individuals have to play in all of this?
So definitely, I think even when you see that these big players fighting or have this conflict ongoing, it's actually collective effort of individuals. So it's, any society breaks down into. But of course, the difference is that in a society like Iran, when you have 90 million people, they can create that synergy and systems to put up a fight, a strong fight. Okay. So I think so again, you can look at it in many different ways. As a single individual, what's my responsibility? So because we believe in Islam, we don't absolve ourselves of responsibility, even if it's a small contribution. We don't look at it because it's a small contribution, it's not worthy enough. We kind of look at it as, look, this is my duty, this is what is in my capacity, I'll do it. Will it have the desired effect, that grand effect? I don't know. But it's not even clear that it won't have. Maybe it does. Sometimes we tell ourselves that, oh, me, one person doing has no effect, which is not true. Yes, it may not have an immediate effect. So the very basic level, we see that me as an individual, what's my responsibility? The first thing is that be aware. Right? We shouldn't be ignorant of what's going on around the world. We should be aware. If you're aware, you can spread the awareness.
I guess the first step to any movement or any change is that we have awareness. If we don't know, then we won't know what to do either, right?
And that's the thing. And if you are aware more than others, you do tabeen, you make others more aware. So they are better placed in making their decisions, because all of this plays into your decision making, if you're more awareness. But I feel that sometimes, because we come from smaller communities and things, sometimes we underestimate that even in our own local settings, if we get together, we can do a lot. I think maybe we're not exploring ideas of how we can counter this Western system through resistance in so many different ways. It doesn't have to be, as Said mentioned, it doesn't have to be military resistance. You can be, if you are a business person and you have like-minded business people, your greatest enemy is capitalism. But again, that awareness first has to be there, which is not there. I don't want to take time, but I've had personal experiences with very successful business people. They exactly think like capitalists. They do not have an idea that something else could even be thought of. So first that has to come, and if they get together in their own area, they can resist. They can put up an alternative to capitalism. You can do the same thing culturally. If you're an artist, you're a muballigh. So I think we need to somehow widen our options of how we react to this. And I personally think it doesn't have to be necessarily, I need to do something very specifically about this war. Yes, as the war is ongoing, we have immediate duties. Whatever needs to be done, we should do in our own capacity. But what I worry is that if the war will end, everyone will go back to the same thing. No, I think this war is an opportunity for us to wake up so that we can then continue the thing, because it's an ongoing thing. It was going on before the war started. It will continue after the war started. And I think we look at it as it will continue till the return of the Imam.
This is a small part of that battle between haqq and batil.
True. And generally when people talk about it, they talk about usually and a moral responsibility or economic responsibility. And Sheikh also added to that. But first, I'll cite an example, for example. A very famous politician and from India, Shashi Tharoor, he has very interesting conversations on this. And what he talks about is economic reparations, or he said, we can forego that, but at least admit there is a moral obligation. I think this is a very defeatist approach generally that people have, because Shashi Tharoor himself, he's a poster boy of colonialism's success story.
Yeah, he himself said.
He's a poster boy for colonialism's success. So what is most important, I think?
Why would you say that?
You want me to elaborate?
Yeah, can you explain that?
Yeah. See, let me give you one more example, and then I'll come back. Zohran, we had this discussion repeatedly even in class. Zohran Mamdani, is his victory and becoming the NYC mayor, is it good or bad? And I said, it's bad. I said, why? I said, he's reinventing and giving life to the American dream. Right in the midst of the Gaza war, when everyone is accusing, and rightly so, America for supporting a genocide. And he might be a very good person. He's probably a better person than I am.
It's not.
I really like him.
Implicit. It's unwilling.
Well, he did speak against the genocide.
He did.
Speak against Israel.
Okay,
right?
Again,
right.
with the same
What
Western
difference? What
liberal
difference does it
framework.
make? Okay, for a few days, all over social media and even mainstream media, Zohran Mamdani was everywhere. Everyone was talking about him. What is he going to do if he succeeds? You'll have cheaper bus rides in New York City, and he'll freeze rents of your apartments. So fine, good for him, good for the city. What difference does it make to the whole?
Well, that's the
world?
question. He did his responsibility.
It
We
is
just
good.
talked
I'm
about
not saying
we do our
it is
responsibility
good.
within our
It is good, but that's why it's important to have that pocket of resistance. You cannot be in the pocket of imperialism and then resist. You have to create another pocket of resistance. So inadvertently, I said, I like him. He's probably a better person than I am. But his victory, like Obama's victory before him, right after the financial crisis in the US, he reinvents the American dream. It only can happen in the US. So these people, they inadvertently become poster boys of imperialism. Same for Shashi Tharoor. He speaks English. No one can speak English the way he does.
He studied in a Western university.
He studied in the Western universities, served in the UN for long, and now served as a minister in a bureaucratic state, which is now, by the way, dominated by another identity of Hindutva, which is again a modern identity.
So basically,
I'm sorry, I disagree with this, because you are countering whatever little effort a person is trying to make towards fighting this colonialism, just because the language they brought up, or the location they live in.
The point is that if someone
we've studied in Western universities, right? So now if I was to come out and start speaking against, for example, colonialism, you would say I'm also a poster boy.
No, not you. I'll tell you why.
I'm not.
No, not you, not Sheikh, not myself. I'll tell you why.
We speak English. We studied in the Western universities.
Right. Yeah, right. I'll tell you why.
Okay, our clothing is a bit different.
Yeah, so that makes a difference.
And that's why you're not.
I'll come to the third responsibility. The third responsibility is what one might call epistemic responsibility or intellectual responsibility. You don't only need economic reparations. You probably need epistemic reparations as well. And this is what we are trying to do.
Can you explain?
And this is what they don't do.
So
they reinforce.
Changing the mindset. So what people like Shashi Tharoor and other people do, they're kind of reinforcing the same Western ideas, and they say that, look, the Western system is good. These were small mistakes. Let's counter
within the same system.
So it's like
they are not fighting the system.
So the solutions will be
fixing the
Indians should be more educated. We should have more IT universities. We should have more presence in the Silicon Valley. This will be there.
So again,
we should be more embedded in the same economic system.
So they're pushing for success, but in the same system.
They just want a bigger share of the pie.
Yeah, it might have some positive impact in the short run, but the point probably Syed is trying to make is that if someone thinks that, like, so for example, Zohran Mamdani and Shashi Tharoor are solution to the problems we are seeing of these wars and genocides and everything, I think that's the biggest miscalculation. In other words, trying to look for a solution within Western ideology, even the most left like forms of it, like secular, centrist, liberal, I think it's submitting to the same framework. Again, it's very implicit. And it's not like we're judging individuals. We don't know what they're thinking. Maybe they're trained like that. But the point is that no one should think that's the solution. And that's why Iran's model, because sometimes people question, like why is Iran so adamant? Why does it want to stand out in the world? That's how it's portrayed, right? Like it's thrown away from the world system. It's not connected to global financial system. It doesn't have those like very big buildings and all that. So people think, why is Iran doing it? It's exactly for the same reason. It's saying that I don't want to use your framework and your model to achieve some relative advantage over, because my concerns are deeper than this. I know it will be hard. I know you'll try to crush me. I know we'll have to make sacrifices. I know we'll have inflation crisis. I know we won't have those fancy buildings. I know I won't have like AI data centers in Tehran, which I can show and say that we are so advanced. But Iran is saying that's not my aim. I'm building something more solid, more grounded. It will take time to show itself. And they may not be very fancy things that you can see that the West has to show technology. That's not the aim.
So
I want to add something here. And this intellectual epistemic responsibility that I mentioned, economic, yes, moral, yes, but more so epistemic and intellectual, which then needs to translate into what Sheikh, the educational responsibility, has to translate into the small pockets of resistance, which then have to, these pockets and islands of resistance has to be systematic eventually. So we have to make sure that this is a very critical, very important responsibility to just envision that a different world is possible, a different way of life is possible, learn how insidiously, how treacherously our minds have been tricked and colonized, that we are forced to think in particular ways, that we can't think outside this very, this straight-jacketed idea of life. So once you do that, then you go to what you said, having those pockets of resistance, which then can be networked and become systematic and civilizational, which Iran is trying to do, and which they don't allow, which Iran is trying to do.
Again, we are not saying that those small forms of resistance within the systems are completely useless.
Yeah.
They have their immediate impact, but no one should be overexcited saying that,
Exactly.
oh, Zohran Mamdani is come now, the American order is changing. No, it's not.
They're
yes,
not even
it's
trying to do that. They're
he's
just
not even
playing within the system.
See, some well-meaning, very well-meaning, very good people can inadvertently reinforce the system.
And it's a different level. So at an epistemic and intellectual level, he's not doing anything. Maybe he cannot. Yes, at higher levels of some economic benefit, some idea of justice for materialistic sense, he would be doing. So we have to look at it in these different layers. But the key point is that the true solution won't come unless you have like a intellectual paradigm shift. And that's what Imam Khomeini clearly said.
Yeah.
And that's the impressive thing about him, that he was very uncompromising on some of these things. And people think that it's being adamant. Like, why are you so adamant? Just give in. Is it all so bad? So we also don't say, like, Imam Khamenei never said that all that is coming from there is all bad. But using that and technology to say that give up your fundamental things that you really cherish, that's where they were very, like, that's why he said that, I'm not a diplomat, I'm a revolutionary. So these foundational matters, we're revolutionary. Because if you compromise on that, then you compromise everything. And you compromise Tawheed, you compromise religion, you compromise building a society that's different than this unjust modern society. And it's a project that's continuing, alhamdulillah, and you can see a divine hand guiding this. They've resisted for 47 years. And probably, I think, at least I feel that what's happening right now is a significant change, that the power of this way of living and society is going to significantly increase. However this war ends, if there's another round or there's some talks and everything, the idea is to cement the victories that have been achieved in many different ways, especially the strategic victories, control of Strait of Hormuz and those things. And that's how it will go. And world will not be the same.
Can we then say, as a summary to everything we've discussed, again, there's a lot of questions, there's still more to talk about, and it's very interesting, but we need to wrap up at some point. Can we say that the colonialism in the past, countries became independent, but colonialism didn't end? But today we're at a new phase in history where now really, truly colonialism is at a downfall, with the rise of the Islamic Revolution and the awakening of nations, where we're now truly coming out of a colonialist period and moving to something different. Is this what we're moving towards?
The potential is there, because Iran has given hope. And that's why it's so important for them to crush this, to even nullify the idea that such a thing is possible. And Iran, it's not limited to Iran. Now you see a similar sentiments in Yemen, for example. You look at Yemen. Yemen is a beautiful example of what life beyond the modern world could be. Lebanon, south of Lebanon, for example, even pockets in Iraq, the potential in Bahrain.
This kind of
all
mindset,
of this is possible.
this kind of awakening in Africa as well. There's movements in Africa that are realizing that we've been suppressed by the West. Yeah.
But I would agree and say that we are in some ways at the very beginning. We have a very important example in Iran of successfully doing this in its own capacity, and others are taking inspiration. So you have the axis of resistance. Iran has built alliances in South America trying to portray the same idea. But again, it's not always possible to give them all that cultural resilience and everything, because the religion is different. But the South America, Venezuela, they've really tried. So no one should think that we've lost hope in Venezuela. The Venezuelan people still have that anti-imperialistic thing. But it's a lot of potential is there, and that's why, as you said, it's so important for them to crush this. Because if this is crushed, then they'll sleep with peace, saying that their hegemony is kind of, in their mind, permanently established. So even the same idea of Greater Israel, they'll be like, okay, we'll head towards that.
So the problem with the likes of China, etc., it's really a state-to-state relationship. It's not about a worldview. It's not about a worldview.
So I think
with Iran, it's different.
So Iran will have to fight this in some ways alone, making alliances, taking help, and all that. But in this kind of a paradigm, say that, look, I stand for these kind of ideas, and I'm ready to make sacrifices, and I'll go ahead because this is my duty, this is my path. And
so we're at the dawn of a new era where that superpower in the West is starting to get crushed. You have more superpowers coming up. You have more of a world where there's alliances between strong nations that are working together for their own benefits, of course, but benefiting each other, not trying to dominate each other, forming alliances. But at the moment, we're right at the start, so we're still fighting this massive system that was actually built on the plundering and basically the wealth of other nations, and this is what we're fighting right now. So we're fighting the remnants of a colonialist empire, and this is basically slowly changing. And we're literally
which is preempting it, and taking measures to make sure this doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So it's happening on both the sides. They're trying to preempt this process and making sure, taking steps that does not happen. On the other side, we see a potential shift towards multipolarity, but that's again important. When you talk about multipolarity, we're still thinking in the term of states, in state terms.
In terms of ideology,
which again is a colonial artifact. But what Iran is doing goes beyond that. It embraces, and I think this is what is so beautiful about Islam. Islam is so pluralistic that allows people maturity. I mean, even when we talk about Islamic government, it's not supposed to be imposed. People have to be mature. The society has to mature to reach a stage where it can embrace it. The same plurality can be understood even on the international level.
Yeah. So people, and we have a lot of hope. I think, although it's war and you have sad things happening, you see there's a lot of pain. But I think the brighter side is that what's happening right now is significantly going to say it's going to boost Iran's confidence. It's going to boost confidence of other nations to take on the United States, because that fear has been broken. You can take them head on and not allow them to reach their goals, and you also achieve your strategic goals. It's going to change things economically because of Strait of Hormuz. Iran is going to have immense leverage, political and diplomatic leverage. You just saw yesterday a representative from South Korea who's blocked $6 billion of Iranian money for years on American instructions. Their envoy came, and very nicely they're negotiating. So I think it's Allah's plan, I think, that they have something which is kind of the choke point for the global economy. And the world we live in is that the only way you can get back your rights, as Imam Khamenei said, that when you seize it from the throat of the oppressors. That's the only way. You need to have sufficient leverage, which now they have. And that's probably Iran's strategy currently, to negotiate, so basically sideline America and Israel and negotiate with nations separately, break their unity. And again, it will be a process, it will take time. Again, no one is guaranteeing mistakes can happen, you have to be vigilant, there can be another attack, but it's a very happening thing. Probably you can say very hopeful that these 47 years of patience, resistance, and sacrifices and martyrdom, especially martyrdom of Imam Khamenei, it will give its result. Like, we look at it very hopefully, inshallah.
Santam. I think it's nice to have seen this war in a bit of a zoomed out fashion. We've got a bigger context, a much larger context, and I think it shows the place, it places everything properly. The brothers and sisters who are here, do you have any questions? Is there anything that's left undiscussed that you feel we should be answering over here? Mm-hmm.
When we talk about such systems and we talk about living under such machinery, colonial machinery and everything, giving out examples of countries which are predominantly Muslims like Iran or like the say, for example, Arab countries, for the sake of saying them they are Islam. Let's say, for example, in the near future they decide to go on like the same model that Iran is pursuing. It's a bit more feasible for them to go on to that because they're predominantly Muslim. But to talk about such a model system for a population, Muslim population living in pockets of concrete colonialism, like say, for example, Muslims living in India, Muslims living in Western countries and everything, where you don't have a system like that. How does it plan out for them?
I think whether you are you're living in a post-colonial Muslim society, whether you're living in a post-colonial society where Muslims are in a minority, whether you are from a diaspora community, whether you are an immigrant, whether you are a European white, or whether you are one of the indigenous people in Australia, New Zealand, or America. This discussion is relevant. Of course, you'll have to slightly tailor it to the needs, but all of these people, they need to know about this process of, because all of us, we are inundated in the artifacts of colonialism. So it's related, it's relevant to everyone, because we are bound by the same state structures, same economic systems, same cultural systems, same religious compulsions, and we have the same responsibilities as well. Some have more moral or intellectual responsibility, some have more epistemic responsibility, some have perhaps only moral responsibility. For example, those living in the West. Now we have all these, I was talking with the brothers before the discussion as well, that we see a rise in the far-right politics in Europe, in America. People have problems with immigrants. And those who do, I mean, they can't complain. I mean, you will receive a Rishi Sunak in gift if you first come and invade America, invade India. So you can't complain about it, you can't crib about it. You have to embrace it. These people, you in your so-called age of discovery, as if these people didn't exist, you went out and you discovered these people, you looted them, you taught them your own language because you wanted to benefit from it. And now when they come for jobs in your own country, to work in the same economic system that you've built looting their wealth, you have problems with it. So it doesn't work that way. You have to accept it. Similarly, in all Muslim societies, what we discussed, it goes beyond just the divisions of Muslims or non-Muslims even. Right now, you're appealing to humanity. Is that a different life is possible, a life based on reality, a life based on independence and freedom. And there's something innate about it. And everyone does get an understanding that to understand themselves, the discussions about colonialism and modernity today, I would say, is a journey in self-discovery. And every person.
It's not easy.
It's a journey in self-discovery. Every person has to do it. Our layers of our identity, wherever you are, whether you are a victim or you're not an oppressor, but a beneficiary of that oppression. Your identity is shaped either completely or affected in part, directly or indirectly, by this whole experience of colonialism. So everyone has a responsibility, not just Muslims.
I get you. So what you're trying to say is like that the responsibilities and the exit strategies might be different.
Slightly different, yes.
But the impact of colonialism is equivalent
If you look at the practical side, I think you'll have to look at the unity you're talking about. So Iran is a country in today's. So they went for this of having a revolution and establishing a political system and working. Of course, we don't come from these communities. So you'll have to define your unit.
Exactly.
So for example, let's say your access is only to a community of like 1,000, 2,000. There in that community, now you can start implementing those Islamic social systems. So you think that, okay, how can we run the politics of the community in an Islamic way? Modeling it on the examples that we have. It won't be like you have a prime minister and a president and a parliament, but the inspiration and the values and the knowledge has to be Islamic.
But
so
as long as we don't have that independence politically and economically and militarily as well, we will have to work within that system.
Yes,
right?
yes.
We are bound to work
yes.
within the economic and political system of whatever country we're living in.
But submitting to it and not being decolonized. So what Syed is saying that we need to decolonize our mindset first, where every single day we are aware that we are in a wrong system. Not allowing ourselves to say that, no, it's okay. And as I said, in my personal experiences, it was very bad. I met a group of people in Dubai. They're like those in financial markets and those. For them, the Western capitalist system was all okay. It's just like malicious players, like bad players doing bad things. And I was like, it was a shock for me because I was presenting to them something that didn't match with what they wanted, and it didn't end up well. That meeting didn't go very well. Because for them, I even said like Islam's paradigm is different. Like you have taqwa and responsibility. So one of them turned and said that no, in West also we have taqwa. And that is like you have self-declaration of your assets and everything. So I said, look, like it's not the same. So it was very hard to...
speaking from two different paradigms.
Yes.
Exactly.
So I think decolonizing our mind is the first thing, and that awareness, and it's not easy.
I think
but beyond that, then you
actually
localize the solution to your needs.
So basically, decolonizing your mind is the first step to be able to think of solutions outside the system, within the larger system, but in a decolonized
Otherwise,
fashion.
you have a very big danger of fake Islamic products. That's what, for example, Islamic banking. If you want, go and read this. There's a very interesting book called Sam Harris. What's it called? The Heavens Bankers. So this guy, he's one of the pioneers of Islamic banking. He's the one who set up Deutsche Bank's Islamic section in Dubai. He was the one who made all the contracts. He has many interviews online. Haris Irfan.
I thought that you'd refer to Wali Nasser's book. His book is called Mechanomics.
Yeah.
Mechanomics.
So this one, he says, he's clearly said that Islamic banking and finance is a sham, is a Islamic label with everything Western. So if you don't decolonize, we'll have a lot of fake products. We'll have a lot of, like, I don't want to say this, like, you have a school that might be named Jafari, but has nothing Jafari in it, in its true essence. So we don't want to have fake Islamic systems and products. Yes, again, when we say fake, it's not 100% fake. People are trying to do things, but at times it's like 95% is the Western system. We have plugged in 5% of like Islamic patchwork, which is still better than 100% system. I'm not saying we're not like downplaying people's efforts because they're genuine efforts, but someone can say that I can take a Western system, do a bit of patchwork, and the society will change, and we'll see that Islamic goals being achieved, and there'll be justice in society.
I guess that's why Shaykh Ayatollah Khamenei would say, right, that we haven't reached actually an Islamic government as per se. We're still in this the process of revolution, because we have systems within Iran that are still Western systems. Like the banking system is not a purely Islamic system.
And that's why at times you say that some of the internal problems are for that reason, and we're not ignoring that fact. The only difference in Iran is that the leaders at the top, they know this. It's not that they've submitted to the Western system and say this is the right one.
Can you say right now it's a pragmatic...
Yes. So pragmatism and taking Islam's growth as a process is a very important thing, especially in the thoughts of Ayatollah Khamenei, that it's a process, it's milestones. You are here, you can't jump to an ideal state in a day or two. And he had a lot of patience. He had a lot of patience. He said that we'll wait 50 years, but we will get there. We'll slowly change the systems. People will say this is not Islamic, this is problem. He knows more than us how problematic. He knew more than us how. He says you need patience, you change slowly. And sometimes you need people's support. You need awareness. You need scholars to work on, design those systems. So that's how it is. So
while everyone is attacking you and compounding your efforts, making it difficult, impossible almost.
So they have said they've researched this, that his way of leadership was kind of, he looked at leadership as a process, basically. So he was not saying that in 10 years have to achieve this goal, and if we don't, we have failed. So it's a constant work and a process that you slowly improve. Some places you improve more, some places you have a setback, but you see the cumulative journey. It's been overwhelming. That's why he had so much hope. Sometimes it was hard to justify that why he's so positive, because he's seeing this as a process. And he's not looking at one point and said we had a setback here, so we have lost. That's how it is.
But we do get glimmers of his hope that his hope was justified. I look at the streets in Iran these days, and I say he really knew his people. And we didn't.
So I think that's what probably most people, I would say, missed. He could see it, but people said that, will these people stand up? Will these people?
But he knew.
You can see it. And sometimes you feel like it's a generation he trained with his own hands. Like he knew that he's training this generation. When the time will come, they will show up. So that's his amazing contribution.
So I think it was a good discussion, looking at the overview, and for those who are thirsty for these kind of discussions, I think you guys gave a good overview and good information. Just to wrap it up, there's a lot more to learn. There's a lot more to discuss. We can't do this and do that in this platform, but I believe you guys have been doing a lot of reading and research on this. Is there anything you can recommend people out there if they want to pursue this kind of topic?
On the books, I'll begin where Sheikh ended, talking about decolonization of mind. There's this very good book by a Kenyan author, I'm sure Sheikh knows him, Ngugi wa Thiong'o. His book is titled Decolonizing the Mind. It mostly focuses on language and how language is used to colonize minds in Africa, Kenya. And then this was his last book in English. After this, he did not write in English, started writing in Gikuyu, a local Kenyan language. And people also raised objections on him that you are circumscribing your own potential and your audience. And there are other writers, such as Chinua Achebe, for example, who continue to write in English and they have a bigger audience, etc. But for him, no, this is a part of resistance, that you have to make a political statement. That I'm not going to think in my colonizer's language. Because speaking comes later. When you start thinking in a language, that changes who you are. He said, no, I'm not going to think in my colonizer's language anymore, and I'm not going to speak the colonizer's language anymore.
Interestingly, for Muslims, it's easy because we have an Islamic way of speaking and thinking. Exactly. For other societies, decolonizing is very hard because you don't have an alternative, easy and ready, that value system. So they really find it very hard. And so at this level, although some of these books can tend to be very complex because they're speaking about identity, language. So there's another book, very, very complex, of the same nature. It's called The Intimate Enemy, written by an Indian social psychologist. He's speaking about the same thing, that what colonization has done is that it's made you your own enemy. Basically, it's forced you to think through their lens. And it's made you lose your all genuinity and your local, whatever variation you are, your color, your cuisine, your thing, your food. So it's like it's alienated yourself from yourself.
It leads to self-hatred.
Self-hatred, identity crisis, subordination becomes easy. If someone is not sure about who they are and they're not confident of their values, it's very easy to crush them. It's very easy to make them submit through fear. That's what happens in other societies when they don't have higher ideals and Americans threaten, they say that, why shouldn't we submit? What do we go back to that will make us resist?
What are we going to gain in exchange to the resistance?
Edward Said's Orientalism is another book that I would suggest.
Which one, sorry?
Edward Said.
Orientalism by Edward Said. He has other books as well, but especially Orientalism.
So again, colonialism as literature comes in different levels. So sometimes you can speak of the economic aspects, the political. These are the outer layers. You can go inside, like about knowledge.
What's colonialism 101? Like, what's the if somebody wants to start this discussion?
Maybe discourse on colonialism by Aimé Césaire. He was a Martinican. The book was an essay initially in French, but later on translated in English as well. Usually this is like 101. But let me point out here. All of these books are written within certain paradigms and certain frameworks. So we have to be cognizant and attentive to that. So not everything written in these books is supposed to be consumed. We have to understand, and I would like to quote one of our brothers, in essence, and by the way, he has written an excellent book review on Why Liberalism Failed by Patrick Deneen. And we're having this conversation, and he said that I appreciate that I'm in Ehsan, and that I've been here for 5-6 months, and the Islamic knowledge, understanding our belief systems, what humans are, what human purpose and goal in life is. Having understood all this, now that I've read this book, I can appreciate and I can understand this book better, and I can appreciate this book better as well, and I can also pick out its flaws as well. Because the conclusions in the book, they're horrible. It's horrible, and the solution is not there really.
So but when we look at these books, we need to be look at it in a skeptical mindset.
So what I would say is
exactly you have to be acquainted with your own Islamic traditions, your belief system well, and when you have that, and you look at these books give you a lot of cannon fodder to understand and attack the Western world. So Orientalism is a brilliant book by Edward Said, but Edward Said comes from a particular school. So you have to understand it. it's an important book. It changed whole disciplines in Western academia. It was a watershed moment, and it's accessible. You can read. Anyone can read this book. It's not that difficult. He's basically discussing how the colonizers used not just power and economic factors, but also education, most importantly literature, and reinvented the colonized for themselves in their own eyes, to their own for the colonizers' benefit. So it's a brilliant book. But we have to take all of this with a pinch of salt.
What I would say is that the resources that are being suggested, that I would say are like a bit harder level 2, someone who's acquainted with the field. If you want something simpler, again, as you said, 101, there's a series of books which were published in Persian called History of Colonialism, which have been translated by Green Palm Publications. Again, I'm not saying it will give you that depth. But if someone is not at all acquainted with what colonialism was, and this like first time they want to read, it's like a story, but it's making important points, and it's written generally with the right perspective. So that's the whole series. I think it's more than 10 books that's available, or at times.
How many books?
14 volumes. So that's available in English.
One of the best things was that it was mentioned by Shahid Khamenei in one of his Taqrib book that it's a must read.
Yeah, it's a.
So basically, we have our own library over here. We should have asked the question from him as well.
I would just say one thing, that if people are interested in knowing about this, and really they have zero background, I would suggest that the first step should be they should do a course. Call someone who's worked on this.
True.
Maybe like go through it in a systematic way so you don't get lost.
Yeah, we've been asking you to do
Sheikh
this course on the online learning platform, but you've been resisting so far.
I've done it, like History of Colonialism. You can easily do 6 hours, draw out the story, not in a very complex way. But that's a good starting point, so you're not lost. Otherwise, you can get lost.
What about a book that's more descriptive and more like looking at a case study of colonialism in a particular region? So it gives you data. So
I mentioned Walter Rodney's How Europe Underdeveloped Europe, in which the whole process it discusses that while one place is developing at the same rate, another place is underdevelopment. So what he's saying is that underdevelopment is not a state; it is a process.
And it's an intended process.
Yeah, it's an intended
process. It's not even
process.
like
And a part of the whole process.
byproduct and collateral damage. It's part of the plan. If you want information, for example, Shashi Tharoor's Inglorious Empire speaks about Indians. So just one
called
data.
him their poster boys.
Sometimes poster boys are
you can take the data, don't take their views or their conclusions, but you can take the data.
Or if someone wants like very specific topic-wise, so this one I mentioned, the late Victorian Holocaust. You want information, but it's just one topic, which is famines and food policy, but of entire British Empire. Speaks about China, India, Brazil, South America. So Noam Chomsky, some of his books are good if you want to, although he comes from a certain baggage. He's not like, but like information, like, but he'll go more into imperialism, media control, domination, not colonialism per se, but some of his books can be read.
Yeah. The Anarchy by William Dalrymple about India, about how East India controlled and ruined in India, that's there as well. And if someone wants to do something more, because at times, and I think this is very important, people try to paint a good image of liberalism and the liberal empire and say that some bad things were done. So if you want to make sure that no one can paint a benevolent picture of liberalism and absolving it of all responsibility while accusing the people, the perpetrators, of doing things on their own. So there's this book by Uday Singh Mehta, he's also comes from India, Liberalism and Empire. Liberalism and Empire, in which he proves that whatever was being done and there's another teacher, she was my teacher, by the way, Jennifer Pitts, A Turn to Empire, both of these. They try to prove that how whatever was done was supposed to be done and was justified and recommended by leading liberal thinkers of the time.
It was the system that
was
was like that, not the
systematic.
people.
It was justified and advocated by supposed stalwarts of liberalism. So these are good books as well, because sometimes people try to paint this image of the benevolent empire in general, or liberalism being this good, free ideology, and some people making mistakes in practice only. So that's not how it was. It was systematic and justified theoretically. So these are good books as well.
Thank you very much. So we've tried to compress 300 years of colonialism into one episode of podcast. We've gone nearly 2 hours, I think, if not more. So I think we should wrap it up over here. Any more suggestions?
I think we wrap it.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Sheikh
you so
Kazim.
much.
Said Ali
Thank
was
you
really
very
nice, benefited a lot. Thank you very much for your comments and your questions. And inshallah, we'll continue this series and hopefully present a different narrative to what is commonly heard out there. And inshallah, everybody can benefit from that. If you have comments, your own comments, your questions, if you're watching online, then don't hesitate to comment on YouTube or even send us messages on Instagram, on WhatsApp, and inshallah we'll be happy to either answer you directly or respond to your questions or comments on this platform. Thank you very much, and until the next episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.